UFC President Dana White has rejected Paddy Pimblett's idea of holding a UFC event at Anfield Stadium in the future. Over the course of the last 12 months, few of the UFC newcomers have made as much of an impact as Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. While he may not be in title contention or anything quite so extravagant, he has definitely appeared incredibly spectacular across his first few appearances in the cage, and he has replicated that energy outside of the UFC octagon. As the persona goes, except for Khamzat Chimaev, it is hard to picture anyone coming close to Paddy Pimblett, at least in terms of those who have entered the UFC circle in the last couple of years. Paddy Pimblett has swiftly become one of the most exciting fighters on the UFC roster since signing with the MMA promotion in 2021, and is part of a new wave of exciting UK talent. The UFC's last event in London was such a success that the MMA leader decided to return to England's capital just a few months later with a show on July 23rd. After the card in March, we knew we needed to turn right around and go back there again. That market is so badass and so fun, White told the Spinning Back Fist podcast. The baddie is part of the reason UFC events in England are so epic, and he will once again compete this summer against fellow prospect Jordan Levitt. It'll be his first step up in competition after he picked up first round stoppage wins and a legion of fans in his first two fights with the UFC. The Scouser is hoping his star power will help him bring the UFC back to Liverpool for the first time since their one and only event in the city in May 2018. In an ideal world, Pimblett wants to compete in front of 60,000 fans at the home of his favorite football club, but that possibility has been taken off the table by White. UFC President Dana White has declared the promotion will never book a stadium show in the UK, shutting down Paddy Pimblett's plan for an Anfield fight night. The Scouse fighter declared that the O2 Arena's 17,000 capacity was too small after his last win, and pushed for a fight at his favorite team stadium. Get Anfield on, and I will sell it out. But White believes that the volatility of the UK weather is too big of a risk, and he isn't interested in putting on events of that size in England. UFC London drew a record-breaking gate, and British fans were praised for providing the greatest atmosphere in the combat sport since crowds returned after the coronavirus pandemic. And the promotion's boss ripped up their summer schedule to return to the UK shores in July, where Pimblett will return against Jordan Levitt. I'm not going outside. I'm definitely not going outside in effing England, White said. If you're gonna go outside, you go to Abu Dhabi, where it's hot as hell and absolutely not going to rain. But I don't even like that. I don't like having any outside factors that can affect the fight. Heat, wind, any of that stuff can hurt the outcome of a fight. I don't like. As we know, England is notorious for being the home of awful weather regardless of what time of year it is, and that's especially true for rain. Liverpool is located in the north of the country, which tends to get the brunt of the chaos, but if the demand is high enough, we wouldn't be surprised to see Dana change his mind. White is well known for making definitive statements before later changing his mind, so there's still hope for a stadium show in Liverpool or somewhere else in the UK. The UFC boss infamously said that woman would never compete in the UFC before Ronda Rousey took MMA by storm and became one of the biggest stars in the history of the sport. Let's not forget that time when White was unimpressed by hearing about the baddie's walkout back in March, earlier this year. The man has got some advice for Baddie. As he said, "This week I was getting tired of hearing, oh, wait till you see his walkout, wait till you see this and that. I was like, I want to see him fight. He needs to win, you know?" White said at the UFC London post-fight press conference. But he did, and he did it spectacularly. And when he was in trouble, he came back and turned the fight around and won. Pimblett was already a massive name in his home country as a Cage Warriors featherweight champion and lightweight contender before ever signing with the UFC. But he burst onto the scene as an international star with his first round knockout of Luigi Vendramini in Las Vegas last September, before submitting Rodrigo Vargas in London. And prior to his UK return back in April, he declared that the promotion will need to find a bigger venue if they were to bring him back to his home country. He won't headline July's card with Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades topping the bill and Darren Till versus Jack Hermanson as the co-main event, but undoubtedly a lot of fans will attend to see the Liverpool native. Without being big-headed and without being up my own arse, I said months ago the O2 Arena is too small with me fighting on it, Pillman said before his last fight. I could sell that out on my own. I genuinely could. They need West Ham's ground, Tottenham's ground, Wembley Stadium. That's what they need with me on the card. You need a bigger venue. This is just not enough. Matchroom Boxing boss Eddie Hearn, who has put on major stadium shows in Tottenham and Headingley already since the end of his pandemic restrictions, offered to help White put on a big show like that in the UK. But it appears that the UFC boss would rather play it safe with the London venue, which has been home to some legendary fight nights over the years. White said after his UFC London triumph that the interest in the 27-year-old had been clear to see during fight week. He said, "I think the best way I can explain it to you is I posted the stare downs for the heavyweights, you know, the main event, and they did 120,000 views. Initially, Pimblett wasn't announced on the July 23rd card alongside the likes of Molly McCann, Darren Till, and Tom Aspinall, but the boss says he wasn't aware of any difficulties in making a deal." White also spoke about his decision to bring UFC back to London a matter of months after their March show, saying that the market was so badass that it was an obvious call to make. That is all very well and sound exciting. As for Dana White slapping away Pimblett's request to have a play outside in Liverpool, it sure does seem mighty unlikely. On top of everything, rather than making these wishes, Pimblett should be thinking of ways to get to the top of the division and leave his mark in the sport. He has already shown that he is more than capable of achieving that. So why wouldn't he focus on that, right?